Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Baldwin. We begin this hour with breaking news. Nearly 2,000 pages. That's what the Senate Judiciary Committee just released, offering the most comprehensive view yet inside that now infamous Trump Tower meeting during the 2016 campaign. The Senate now publishing the transcripts from the closed-door interviews and statements from some of the people that were inside that Trump Tower meeting, including the president's son, Don Jr., who hosted the meeting after receiving an email promising dirt on Hillary Clinton coming from the Russian government. The meeting has been a key focus, as you well know, of the special counsel's investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Let's get to all of this right now. CNN senior congressional correspondent Manu Raju is on Capitol Hill. Manu, it has been a lot of pages to comb through, but what are we learning about, well, specifically mostly from Don Jr. and the lead up to this meeting?
Well, there were a lot of discussions between him and Rob Goldstone, who was the music promoter who essentially arranged this meeting. Donald Trump Jr. had already released his email exchanges with Rob Goldstone, in which he was promised dirt on the Clinton campaign. Goldstone said this was a part of the official Russian government effort, Russian support of the candidate Trump's candidacy. And Donald Trump Jr. said, I love it. He wanted to get information about Hillary Clinton that could be damaging to her campaign. And we now know that Rob Goldstone testified that he believed that this would be a, quote, bombshell revelation to Donald Trump Jr. and others in this meeting. So there were a number of discussions that Donald Trump Jr. had with Goldstone and with also a Russian pop star, Emin Agalarov, in the run-up to that meeting. Now, when he was asked about this coming potentially from Russian sources, Donald Trump Jr. Said this. I'll read you from the transcript. He said, I was interested in listening to information. The question was information on Hillary Clinton. He says, yes, information on Hillary Clinton on that came potentially from the Russian government. Again, I had no way of assessing where it came from, but I was willing to listen. Now, what Trump Jr. testified was that the dirt did not ultimately materialize. He also says that he did not inform his father about this meeting. But we are also learning that there were phone calls in the run-up to the meeting, including one of a blocked phone number. And when he was asked who that phone call was with, he said he didn't remember. And he was asked if it was potentially with his father. He said he did not know. And we do know from separate testimony that his father did have a blocked number at one of his residences. So that was one question that at least Democrats have going forward, Kate.
Well, and a big focus, Manu, has all along been the evolving statements after the fact when this meeting all came to light. What did Don Jr. say about the president's involvement in crafting that initial misleading statement?
Well, there was clear concern within the White House about this statement, about the story when it came out in July 2017, first reported by the New York Times. There were those misleading statements that came out about exactly the nature of this meeting. Now, Donald Trump Jr. says he did not speak to his father directly about this, but there appears to be some indirect discussions through Hope Hicks, then the White House communications director. In one exchange during this interview with the Senate Judiciary Committee staff, he's asked, Donald Trump Jr. has asked, to the best of your knowledge, did the president provide any edits to the statement or other input? Donald Trump Jr. responded, he may have commented through Hope Hicks. And the follow-up question, do you know if his comments provided through Hope Hicks were incorporated into the final statement? He says, I believe some may have been, but this was an effort through lots of people, mostly counsel. And Kate, we've also learned that Donald Trump Jr. did not provide this committee with documents about those July 2017 interactions because Donald Trump Jr.'s attorney said those are protected by attorney-client privilege. So we'll see if there's ever an effort to subpoena or get those records. Or maybe Mueller's team has a sense on whether or not Donald Trump Sr., the president, had a more significant role in these conversations. But right now, all this, Kate, really providing more details into a narrative that we already knew about this meeting, the offer of dirt, something that Donald Trump Jr. and others say did not actually ultimately materialize in this meeting, Kate.
And many more pages to comb through. Manu, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk to Manu in a little bit. Joining me now, Sean Turner, CNN national security analyst, former communications director for the U.S. National Intelligence. Jackie Kucinich is a CNN political analyst, Washington bureau chief for the Daily Beast. And Seth Waxman is here. He's a defense attorney and former federal prosecutor. Thanks all for being here. Sean, first to you. So what Monty was getting to, Don Jr. saying that he was interested in listening to getting information on Hillary Clinton. I was willing to listen, according to the transcript. That's beyond the kind of I would love it that we heard so much and analyzed so much from the initial email. Is that collusion?
Well, even if it is, Kate, unfortunately, what we've learned over time is that collusion is not necessarily a crime in this context. But I think that there's a bigger issue here. There's the issue of inconsistencies in statements that Don Jr. may have made or that others may have made in both the written and oral testimony. And I think that's something that the Mueller team will look at very closely. But there's also the issue of the purpose and intent that the Russians had in going into this meeting. Look, we know that Natalia Veselnitskaya is somebody who was not a lawyer with dirt on Hillary Clinton. She went into this meeting as an informant who's closely allied with the Kremlin. And
Which
so
she eventually, later, just recently, admitted that she was an informant for the government.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's out there. So the real question is, she was there to collect information, and she was there to set the conditions for a follow-on meeting. So what I'll be very interested in is whether or not she actually was able to accomplish any of that.
Yeah, what happened after all of this? I think that's is a key question. So, but to continue on the vein of what the Russia investigation is really centered on is Russia collusion, Seth. So Donald Trump Jr. was interested in getting dirt, but they didn't have anything to offer. That's what came out from this transcripts in many different places. Is that collusion still? If he wanted it, they didn't have it to offer. Do you see collusion?
Well, first, his kind of self-serving statements that they didn't have it to offer, that Mueller's investigation will prove up whether that's actually true. But the fundamentals of a criminal case are being laid here. I mean, what we have is a quid pro quo, the offer of dirt on Hillary Clinton in exchange for the reduction of sanctions on Russia. And that was, by all accounts now, what the purpose of that meeting was. There may have been people more interested in it or upset that things weren't going the right way, but at its bare minimum, that's what this was about. And as we may know, under a federal bribery charge, if you offer anything of value to a public official, and that public official offers or promises official acts in the future, that is the fundamentals of a bribery charge. And so I think that this testimony as a whole can be taken as kind of setting the base fundamentals of a federal charge.
Except when it came to the Magnitsky Act, they basically said, at least we see in the transcripts, we don't know anything about this. And I think even it was said, like, go talk to President Obama about it, because my father's still a private citizen at this point. But regardless, Jackie, this is all coming out the day before an anniversary. The anniversary being that Robert Mueller was appointed to be special counsel. This coming out the day before that, because we know that we heard from Rudy Giuliani in an interview with Bloomberg that their kind of tactic is they're going to make a big deal about this anniversary coming up tomorrow, and they're going to say that it's time for this all to ratchet down. It's been a year. It's time to wrap it. The anniversary has come up. It's time to wrap it up. This coming out the day before, it does what?
I think it depends on what side you're on, frankly. Democrats are going to point to this. I mean, it does, right? They're going to point at this, and they're going to say, look at all the contact that Trump officials and his son had with the Russians. It's right there. It's in black and white. And both sides are saying that it happened. Republicans are going to say, yeah, but there's no collusion. Look at this. Now, one of the many things that isn't bearing out, saying that the Mueller investigation hasn't found anything. There's one person in jail and a whole lot of people that are indicted that point to the absolute opposite of that. He has been finding things. We don't know what else he has. So the idea that it's time to wrap up now is just a little far-fetched, frankly.
And who can really speak to that with authority when Robert Mueller's team is like the only one that hasn't really been leaking? Sean, Don, let's talk about the statement, the drafting of the statement. Don Jr. said that he never talked to his dad about drafting the July statement, but that Trump may have commented on it through Hope Hicks. That's what came out in the transcript. Can you remind us why you think the president's role in drafting the statement is so important?
Yeah, I think that because it really kind of speaks to how involved the president was in these direct interactions with the Russians. I mean, look, what I think Don Jr. was doing here is he was trying very hard to walk a fine line. He wanted to make absolutely sure that he did not lie in his testimony, but he also wanted to make sure that he maintained some degree of plausible deniability for the president. So in doing that, I think that what we see now is that he's kind of shifting responsibility and kind of saying maybe it's possible through Hope Hicks. But it really does come down to, from a national security perspective, it really does come down to whether or not the president was directly involved in either the conduct of this meeting or in how the narrative around this meeting was shaped after the fact.
Well, and Seth, then play this out for me, because one of the things that, and Sean's getting to it a little bit, is one of the things that you see in Don Jr.'s testimony quite a bit is I don't recall or I don't know. I mean, on the question of did your father ever tell you he saw emails about the meeting or knew anything about the meeting? I don't recall. Did anyone else pass along information about the meeting? I don't know. Was your father involved in drafting the initial statement about the meeting? I don't know. I never spoke to my father about it. When someone testifies, or in questioning testifies, I don't recall and I don't know so much, does it lead you somewhere? Does it tell you something?
Well, sure, it starts to fail the smell test. I mean, if someone's going to say, I recall X, Y, and Z, I recall, things that happened at the Trump Tower meeting and it didn't involve X, Y, or Z. But on the other hand, during that same time frame or even the year later, I can't recall these other things. It starts to wear at that person's credibility. And, Don Jr. is kind of changing, flip-flopping statements about this. Let's all remember in July 17, when this statement came out, he claimed it was all about abortion, the meeting a year earlier. We now know that's entirely false. Now, whether the president played a role in that statement or not, is yet to be determined. But it's clear now that Don Trump Jr., when that statement was issued, was perpetrating a falsehood. And why lie about the meeting a year earlier if that year earlier meeting was not nefarious, if there was nothing wrongful about it? Why do you have to lie about it?
But then, Jackie, getting to the adoption issue, I mean, Rob Goldstone, he's the guy, of course, if we can follow the tangled web, he's the guy who basically coordinated this whole thing, connected the two sides to set up the whole thing, the promoter guy. He said, he testified before the committee that Jared Kushner in the meeting appeared frustrated, and then at one point he says infuriated in the meeting when the Russian lawyer, Veselnitskaya, wouldn't kind of get to the point. He said at some point, like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Eventually saying that, and then she eventually got to the point saying that she was there to talk about the Magnitsky Act. That's U.S. sanctions. That gets to adoption. So, roundabout way for me to say, so what's this whole thing about adoption, even though they weren't there was not full disclosure when it came to that first statement. But was this whole thing about adoption?
They were promised a smoking gun, and they started going through this kind of convoluted story about donors in Russia and the DNC. And the way I read it, that's when Jared Kushner was like, what are you talking about? And then the Russian lawyer started talking about adoption, and no one wanted to hear it, which is when you had Don Jr. come and say, listen, my father's a private citizen. You should talk to the Obama administration about this. That said, they didn't stop there, right? They kept on trying to approach the Trump campaign about this issue and push this. So the fact that they used something to get in the door, that's what frustrated Kushner. So no, yes, at the end of the day, it was about adoption, but that's
not. But if it really just was, why then all this, the smoke and mirrors and kind of what
to get in the door?
Get in the door and the cover up. I'm saying on the backside of it,
right?
Why there's this whole mumbled mess of a statement putting out, and then the crafting and the recrafting and the releasing of the emails. Again, it just doesn't look right. It just doesn't look right. And this is offering us some more context about it all. Sean, Jackie, Seth, thank you so much.